Good. By the way, greatest question of the day. I don't know if anyone's going to touch that.
It's funny. I feel like I end up in a lot of shows that people miss. I don't know why that is, but
Hi, I'm Jonathan Bloomberg, writing for movies in Sweden.
hey, nice to meet you, Jonathan.
The pleasure is all mine.
Mm.
I'll just start out by saying that The Nick is probably one of my favorite TV shows of all time. This is a pleasure. And I also watched the entire series of this new show, and I'm liking that as well.
Oh, thank
Um, yeah.
you.
So I wanted to start out with asking how much you knew about Huey P. Newton before getting involved with the project, and if you knew anything, did you know all of it?
Hmm. Well, thank you for your kind words, man. The Knicks one of my probably my favorite thing that I've ever done as well. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. Uh,
Yeah,
but years ago I was actually attached to a movie about in which Huey P. Newton was a character. The movie never got made, but during that process, I got to do a fair amount of research about him, and so I learned, pretty good amount about him at that point. But with this
yeah,
project, I felt like I needed to start all over, and so I went back to the very beginning and, you know, read everything I could find about him and talked to as many people as I could, who were willing to talk to me and did all the research and then discovered so much more about him. And yeah, I just found him to be such a fascinating, complicated character.
yeah,
Yeah.
truly. And me being from Sweden, like I've heard of the Black Panther movement through other movies and TV shows and stuff like that, but never to the extent that we get to see here. So that was really nice to go on that journey.
Mm.
I also wanted to ask about working with Don Cheadle as a director on the first two episodes, because I'm thinking like working with an actor being a director, you kind of probably can bond in different ways. And I was wondering if that was the case here.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely have Don and I like a common language as actors. And so sometimes with directors who aren't comfortable working with actors, there can be a bit of a barrier. Uh, I think actors, we can be kind of strange at times and speak our own
It
language. And
goes both ways.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that goes both ways. But in this case, Don and I often could just communicate with a look. He might give me a look, and I understood that what he wanted me to do was to, go further or, you know, um, whatever it was. And so one good example of that is the scene that we shot in solitary confinement, where, we
Yeah,
talked about it a bit beforehand. And then once I got into the cell, you know, we almost did it like a play. He would say, all right, the cameras are ready, just do your thing. And so I would start doing it and he might come over and, offer some small suggestion. And then, we just kind of kept going until we felt like we both had it. And I think, yeah, the trust that we had in each other as actor and as director allowed us to go pretty far.
yeah. I do think that you unlocked something there because I could really feel like we got to go on this journey in a really great way. So that was nice to see. And while having you here as well, I mentioned the Nick, but I also wanted to ask about the Eddie,
Hmm.
because that's such a real gem, and uh, I'm wondering if that is like a show that you feel like people missed, because I don't hear people talk about that as much as they really should.
It's funny. I feel like I end up in a lot of shows that people miss. I don't know why that is, but yeah, I do feel like the Eddie is one of those. It came out, I believe it was like right at the beginning of the pandemic when it dropped, and
Yeah,
so we weren't able to do a lot of like press around it, and it kind of came and went in a way, but I feel really proud of it. And there are still people who come up to me and say, "Oh, I saw the Eddie and I really liked it." And kind of similarly to how you mentioned the Nick.
mm,
So I feel like some people are still discovering it, which is also really nice to see.
yeah. I'm hoping this will help with
Yeah.
that. So, so
Thank you.
thanks a lot for your time today, and best of luck with the premiere of this show. I'm sure people will find this at least.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Good. By the way, greatest question of the day. I don't know if anyone's going to touch that.
I
Greatest
mean,
question.
it extends way beyond.
Hi,
What's up? How are you?
I'm doing great, especially now when I can be able to speak with the two of you.
Aw.
So I actually finished the show just a few days
You watched
ago.
all 6?
I've watched them all. Yeah.
There we go. See? All right. I like it. Here we go. Uh-oh.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm going to have to ask Alessandro if you went to PJ to ask about how to play a famous director on screen, as he has done so many times.
I learned everything I know from PJ.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Good. By the way, greatest question of the day. I don't know if anyone's going to touch that.
I
Greatest
mean,
question.
it extends way beyond just
life, parenting, all
playing
of it.
this
Yeah,
role.
yeah.
He's a model for me
Yeah.
on so many levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was for the viewers afterwards. Obviously, a shout out to Adam from The Voice.
Adam Moore, the world's greatest director.
Yeah.
World's greatest director.
Exactly. All kidding aside, Bert Snyder was he's the real guy, and a lot of this story kind of came to life because of the interviews that were done with him. So I'm guessing that was a lot of help for you, not Adam maybe, but the actual guy. So how much of that did you use to find the character?
Yeah, I mean that was my main resource because Josh Byrne, who wrote the article that the series took its inspiration from, had done a very long interview with Bert just before he died. How long ago did he die? 5, 6 years ago or something?
Yeah.
And so it was near the end of his life. They're just totally fascinating. He handed the tapes over to me, all of them, and there were hours and hours of it. And he talked all about this whole era and his time before that, growing up, his relationship with his dad, discovering the monkeys, working with Terrence Malick after in Days of Heaven, and he just talked about Huey in particular. I mean, there was something almost like cultishly obsessed with Huey about him in the way that he spoke about him, even as an old man, but nearly dead.
Yeah.
And
Shows you the power
that
of
kind of just that was the main tip off for me, was just that he really was kind of in love with Huey. He called him the smartest man that he'd ever met. I mean, he was just ready to kind of lay down his life for him.
Yeah. And just the idea of making a fake movie to save his friend's life, that it's like a story that is too good to be true but actually happened. So that's pretty out there.
I can't believe it.
Yeah. So how much of this did you guys know from before? Did you know any about the things that occurred?
I honestly had no idea, and it was that was part of the excitement. And when you learned, like, I can't believe this is true. You got to play these real characters in history. You got to share with America the story of Hugh P. Newton, a little bit of the story of the Black Panthers, which I thought was critical. But what
I had read Easy Rider's Raging Bulls.
Oh,
You know that book? Have you heard of that book? If you haven't read it,
amazing.
No, I haven't.
And you care about movies, you should read it. It's so entertaining. It's all about
it's on my list now.
There is some reference to it, but nothing like the kind of
depth we go into
detail of this story. I didn't know about the movie, the fake movie.
I had no idea.
And now having done this, with the Black Panther, we're also obviously waiting for the Rhino. So that's coming next.
You're waiting for what?
The Rhino.
The Rhino. Oh yes, yeah. Yeah, that's coming next. Maybe we'll get to talk again about that.
I hope so. So thanks a lot for your time.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure speaking with you.
Great to
And
talk to you.
ours, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take care.
Take care, buddy.
I knew where they ended up, but how we got there, I didn't really have any clue.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I'm Jonathan Bloomberg, writing for movies in Sweden.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Good, thank you.
So I finished the entire series just a couple of days ago, and really loving what the whole vibe of the show. And we get to spend a lot of more time with your character at the end of the series. So I was wondering kind of how much you knew going into the project about your own character and her involvement in the bigger picture, so to say.
Yeah, I didn't really know exactly how much I was gonna have to do or where the storyline was going. I knew where they ended up, but how we got there, I didn't really have any clue.
Yeah.
I kind of just jumped in because I loved the story that we were trying to tell, and I loved the team that was assembled. And then I was like, well, I guess I'll just go along for the ride and see what happens.
Yeah. The chemistry between your two main, like with the main character, and kind of how we get to see him, like he's not entirely there, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I was wondering how if you guys were talking about how to kind of deal with those scenes as tastefully as one can.
Yeah, it was really important to Andre and I to be respectful of Huey and Gwen, without having really either of them to talk to, right? But I know it's really important for Andre that he protect, the legacy of Huey. And for us, it's really a love story in a lot of ways. We looked at it as a love story between these two people who are fighting against the forces of the world, but trying to preserve their love. And for me, my intention was always for Gwen. She is so solar focused on this man, not just because she's in love with this man, but she knows what he could mean to the world. And so she's willing to do kind of ridiculous things in order to protect him and cover him in a way that the rest of the world isn't. So that's a lot of what our conversations were about for building up our relationship.
Yeah, I see. And like, I had obviously heard of the Black Panther movement, but I live in Sweden, so it hasn't been like as big of a deal over here. So this is my first time really getting into what that movement actually meant.
Yeah.
So I was wondering also how you feel like showing this for everyone that has Apple now to kind of really get to learn more about this movement and what it was really supposed to be. What does that mean for you?
Yeah, it means a lot for me. I mean, personally, I am always really interested in this time period and in the movement for, kind of the first wave of movement for Black lives in this country as we go through, these cycles over and over again of trying to get equality in this country. And I think the Panthers are such an important part of the African American experience, and being able to share that with the world through Apple, to share Huey's story, a little bit of his story, and share this part of his story that I don't think a lot of people have ever heard about, is really, really exciting. Just hearing that you didn't know much and this show was able to, tell you new things that you didn't know. I think that's part of what we're going for. So I'm proud of that.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. So thanks a lot for taking the time to speak with me today, and best of luck with the premiere. I'm sure it will go great.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
In a world where everybody is inundated with Instagram and TikTok, to actually get people's attention is hard. And we had an opportunity with...
Hi, I'm Jonathan Bloomberg, writing for movies in Sweden.
Hi,
Jonathan.
Hi. So I finished watching the entire series just a few days ago, and I really I loved what I got to see, because I realized I knew very little about this story. I knew of the Black Panthers, but I now know that how little I knew back then. So
Yeah.
so I was wondering. I wanted to start out with you, Jim, because if I understood it correctly, you kind of wrote like a thesis script about this 25 years ago, and it's now that we get to see the like the end result of that vision you had all the way back then. What made this story grab your attention?
Well, I think it's just sort of what you touched on in the beginning. Like like I was a political junkie. I was a political science major in college and obsessed with the idea of like participatory democracy, direct democracy, civil disobedience, nonviolent civil disobedience, social movements as a way to change the agenda and thereby change the world. And so that's when I first came across what Huey P. Newton was all about, what he did. And of course, the first thing that you get hit with is here's a guy who, and as incredible as this is, like a college kid in 1967, young man, gets into the law book, finds something out, and goes out, takes a gun and polices the police on his own. And so an incredible, like, wow, an incredible story of heroism and bravery and political activism. And then the more you get into it deeper, you find out like, yeah, that was step one. Then Republicans in California passed gun control laws because they saw Black Panthers with guns and took them away. And what the party became about was social change and like these social programs. So like this feeding, getting up at 5 a.m. to feed Oakland school children. And they built a library and they built a factory to make shoes and clothes. And they built, they put an ambulance service and medical care and all these programs. And that is when the federal government declares war on him, not because they went out and took guns into the streets of Oakland, but because they were feeding school children. They launched this COINTELPRO program because they saw what it could mean and what it could change and all that it could do. And they said,
well, the influence,
Yes. Yes.
they declared war on Huey Newton. So it's an incredible story to me. And that's what I sparked you originally. And I hope we get across.
Yeah. And also I must thank you, Janine, for many hours of television watching Third Watch and
Thanks.
and Criminal Minds and ER and everything like that. So what was it in this story in particular that grabbed your attention? Now we have only like 1 minute left here.
I literally had never seen a limited series about Huey Newton. And I know right now in this country, we are fighting to get history told, especially Black history told. There's all these measures against us. And so if this was a way to tell Huey's journey and his rise with the party, the breakup of the party, and his kind of realization of what he thought the world should do moving forward, while also showing a caper story that's fun and entertaining, the mix is just something you've never seen before. In a world where everybody is inundated with Instagram and TikTok, to actually get people's attention is hard. And we had an opportunity with this show to not only get people's attention, but to educate them and to let them know that Huey Newton just didn't sit in a wicker chair. He didn't just walk the streets with guns facing off with police to stop police brutality. Like Jim said, he fought to make sure that kids could get educated every single day with a full stomach, because he realized that you can't actually learn if you're hungry. And so that mere action made him wanted by the government. And so I think now more than ever, people need to like get up and be active in their communities. And if we can learn anything from Huey, it's that if you want the world to change, you have to actually change it.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for your time today and for this marvelous show. I'm sure everyone will like it. So best of luck with the premiere.
Thank you
for
so much.
having us.
Thank you.